Hi there, my name is FixFox and welcome to Factorio. This is going to be the tutorial level 5 from Factorio. We're going to get a lot of new shiny toys to play with. We're going to get some more of that fantastic gameplay loop. I'm sure we're going to research more things. We are going to fight more biters, and we are going to do our very, very best to set up a very automated factory that we can ideally leave it alone and it will just keep humming right along. So let's dive right in. This needs no further introduction. If you've been following me, you are fully well aware of what we are getting into. So let's just dive right in to the tutorial level 5 abandoned rail base. Remember that we left off in the tutorial level 4 with us getting into this car. We had a whole ton of wonderful items that we were going to take along for us in this long journey, and we were following the signal, the attenuation signal of a potential crashed spaceship where we could maybe either get some rescue or find some friends in this hostile planet. This is the spaceship that we're talking about here. The engineer says, well, this doesn't look too good. I don't see any engineer corpses, so they must have escaped in time. It looks like they were researching advanced technologies here. If I repair the base, I can continue their research. All right. I will need to repair the rail infrastructure too. The local resource patches will run dry soon. As you can see, we've seen some of this destroyed rail before, but this is the first time that we actually have some rail that we can pick up. It will appear in our inventory and we can place it much like we can belts, but it will provide us the opportunity for the first time to do trains. If you like any kind of train simulator game, Factorio is going to scratch a particular itch for you, and I think you're going to be quite happy for that. So real quick, let's just take a quick tour of what we have. We see some of these rails, these red belts that we were able to unlock in the previous scenario. They do run twice as fast as the yellow belts. They can carry 30 items per second, whereas the yellow belts carry only 15 items per second. We see what looks to be a train stop here. If I left click on the train stop, it says iron ore processing is the name of this train stop up here in the upper left. There's a couple of different features here, but we will get into that later. And it looks like some of these medium electronic poles. If I kind of zoom in a little bit, if I go back to the power poles I currently have in my hand, you can see that there is quite the difference. My small electric poles have this 5x5 grid in which items can be built in. These medium electric poles, it looks like they have a 7x7, so we're looking forward to using some of these new ways of using power. As well as over here, we have these big power poles, these big electric poles. It looks like they have a very long range. They can go from one distance over here to one distance over here in a single go. Like Superman, they are leaping over buildings, railways, and anything with a single bound. So, lots of destroyed things here. What they were, it'll be difficult for us to find out, difficult for us to say, but what is left is what looks like to be the beginnings of a smelting array. We're going to dive into what that is in just a moment here. Let's zoom out just for 1 second and take a look at what else we have here. We have some iron ore here, some stone here, and some coal right here. The engineer mentioned that the local resource patches would dry up soon. Let's hit M for map and bring up our map. Aha, and we see some very interesting things. So let's talk about the thing I was first going to the map for and mousing over our patches. It looks like you can see there it says iron ore 24K. Looks like this coal patch is 190K. And then the stone patch, it looks like, is 124K. So the stone and the coal are probably going to last us pretty much forever. But the iron ore, it is running fairly low, as is this copper ore over here, 16K. The copper and the iron, I anticipate that the iron is going to run out faster than the copper, but all the same, that is worth noting there. It looks like you can see the way that the rails are placed. There is a corresponding kind of feature there. It looks like if we zoom out that these rails go up to the north and then to the west. This patch over here, this gigantic iron ore patch that has 722,000 ore in it. We are going to for sure want to find out a way that we can divulge that area of its resources and use that for our own production. We do have a biter base not too far from here, and here to the south. And then there are more rails. It looks like they are disjointed, discontinued, probably destroyed in some capacity, but they also run to the southeast. So let's get kind of closer to home here and just understand that we do have some future opportunities. It looks like there were some mines that were electric, and they were sending coal down these belts here. I'm just going to repair these belts as we're going. And very interesting, it looks like through the use of walls, there was an interesting setup here that was used for power. Let's zoom in just a little bit so we can kind of get a better understanding of what has happened here. It looks like there was an underground belt here that's been destroyed. I'm going to just buy a couple of these splitters and undergrounds. I think that those are going to be useful. And as we explore the remnants of this base, let's just also try and get things up and running at the same time. Troubleshoot here. What's the problem? It looks like we have a underground pipe here that's working, and here that's working, no problem, but there's no power here to kind of get started. Let's pick up just one little bit of coal here and put it in here. Okay. This boiler is working. It says no fuel because it just ran out of that coal just that quickly, but it was able to send a little bit of power. A little bit of steam was created right there. So the water is working here, but these other machines, it looks like we are going to need to probably purchase a boiler here and a boiler there to kind of continue the process. The water can go through one end of the boiler and out through the other. And if you have a whole row of boilers, then the water will get from point A to point B without any problems. It looks like that has solved that problem. The boilers are working. They're getting water. They're getting our resources, so that way we can create the steam. And otherwise, let's just get this thing back up and running. Not a lot of power here, but we have enough. We have enough. The steam engines over here are currently not connected. It looks like there were some undergrounds here and here that were getting the steam in. We're going to just repair that really quickly. And with just a little bit of movement there, we were able to make some good things happen. And the engineers prior, it looked like, opted to have one gigantic long chain of these steam engines. I see no reason that we should disappoint them. We will continue to do that. We see a new bit of technology for the first time. It is to my immediate north here in the 12 o'clock position. This is a laser turret. When it is powered, the laser turret will always draw a tiny bit of electricity. It will take 24 kilowatts of electricity to just stay in the ready position, and when it fires, it looks like at max it will be using 1.22 megawatts of power, 800 kilojoules of electricity per energy beam. But that is a new way that we can potentially defend our base. But we now have all of this up and running. We have power. We have our steel, our steam turbines that are protected, and so there should be no major issues over here. Looks like there's a little wall here section that as we walk through it, the gate will go down for us, and that's rather nice. We're out of stone wall sections here. I'm going to borrow a couple just because I like things to be nice and neat. And we see a new thing for the first time. These are solar panels. Solar panels do exactly what you would think a solar panel will do. During the daytime, it will produce electric energy. As the sun goes down, it will produce less and less energy until it hits zero energy being produced. And then, of course, as the sun rises and falls every single day, it will produce a certain amount of electricity. It is a renewable resource. It is pretty fantastic. And you will often find people talking about how great their solar farm factory is. Later on, it's a good way for you to save UPS, which is updates per second. It's the way that the game calculates and keeps track of how everything is going. If you get to mega base status, you're going to want to be on solar power, because there's no way that you can have a billion of these steam engines going without negatively impacting everything you have, especially when you start getting into fluid calculations and things of that nature. But for now, it's worth noting that we are not going to have any problem using steam. We are not going to be able to get to nuclear energy in this tutorial. This setup should do us just fine, and we will look for the opportunity to maybe put down some more solar panels rather than expand our steam-based coal-driven plant. But we have reconnected the belt. We have connected the miners that were on the coal patch to the power source here, and slowly you see that this thing is turning right back on. This looks to be working just fine. Okay, so we've got power restored. And let's just take a quick look in our inventory as I set up my quick bars here. It looks like we have 9 belts, we have 7 undergrounds, 2 splitters, we got 17 of our yellow inserters, and we have 10 of our long-handed inserters, 15 of our small power poles, and we've picked up 2 medium electric poles off of the ground. We don't really have a lot of power poles. We do have some lights, which you know that I love. Let's adjust our color here while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that looks like a nice dark shade of blue, maybe a little bit more violet, but that's okay. 5 electric miners, 10 assemblers. It looks like we did bring 5 of our labs with us. I'm just fine with that. I'm going to put some of my basic resources like my copper and my iron plates along with my coal and my wood here in my quick bar, just so that way I can keep an eye on them without having to click on my inventory just to see how much of something I have left. A little bit of stone, some green circuits, and some iron gear wheels. Okay, well, as much as possible, I'm going to try to not completely demolish this base and then rebuild it in my own vision. I'm going to more or less try and repair this outpost here. And the engineers prior to us, they did a really nice job here. They did something pretty interesting that we haven't seen so far. And that is that they used 3 belts kind of to have all your centralized raw resources and fuel in the middle. And then on the outside, you can mouse over these inserters. You can see which direction they are drawing items to and then depositing them. So the materials that are finished will go to the outside. And that's a pretty nifty way of kind of doing this setup here. Because of the destruction, I am going to have to more or less truncate this bit of production here. I'm going to shorten it up so that way we're fully using all of these spots. But as you can see, there are holes all throughout here. It looks to be that there are these new type of furnace. We have our normal stone furnaces, which we are very familiar with. They look just like that. And then next to them here on the left hand, these are all steel furnaces. What's the difference? Well, they both do the exact same thing, but steel furnaces are able to craft items twice as fast. If you look at the tooltip on the right hand side, it says crafting speed 2, whereas the stone furnace has a crafting speed of 1. The pollution is doubled, so you don't save yourself any pollution, but you do save yourself time. And that is an okay thing as far as I'm concerned. Now, if I follow these belts back, I'm just going to follow this top red belt here, and let's just walk the line to see what's going on here. It looks like this was connected kind of to this train railway system here, where maybe it looks like these inserters were bringing some of the raw materials out of the train and putting them onto the belt. And remember, if we followed this train track up, it would take us to the northwest, and that was our iron ore. So we can safely assume that this belt here is good for the iron ore resources. I am going to leave this belt here. I don't love it, but we're going to leave it for now because I think I'm going to be able to just get a new belt, and I will make sure that it wraps into this general area right here. But for now, we do need some additional raw materials, and we're going to find something out very quickly that we haven't had to deal with just yet. And that is that if you have your patches of materials right next to each other or pretty close, you might have some overlap in what one electric mining drill will be able to reach. And when you do so, they will not really sort out the materials for you. You're going to get both your regular iron ore and your stone onto one belt. Now, is that really a problem? Not really, but if we have mixed belts, that is something that we're going to want to be conscious of and find a way to minimize as risks in our factory. I recommend that we use our splitter here. Let's filter out with the splitter and say, well, any stone that comes off of this belt is going to go to the right-hand side. Oh, and the very first thing that we, of course, should have done was hit Alt. I'm clicking this, and I expect it to be reflected right here. Of course, it is not because I haven't pressed Alt. Very important that we press that. And so now, stone will go off to this side, and for now I'm just going to make sure that it goes into a box. I'll make sure that this inserter is powered, and then that way any extra stone is still going to be collected. It's not going to be wasted, but it will not get in the way of my other smelting up here. Knowing that you can smelt stone in these smelters using some sort of bricks, well, it'll turn into bricks. We don't want that to happen. We just want to make sure that we get some nice iron plates onto this area. And I'm going to do something here where knowing that this will eventually be up in place, up and running, I could just put a splitter here and to make sure that the resources go down. The issue here is potentially that, well, then this red belt will be interrupted by a slow yellow belt splitter. Remember, the splitters in the undergrounds will move items just as fast as their yellow belt counterparts will. So it's going to be 30 items per second, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 15. and then 30, and that creates its own natural bottleneck. But right now, I don't plan on using a red belt to get the resources from here anyway, so it's not really going to matter, and this will just set me up for future success. Okay, so what's the problem here? Thankfully, because of this new medium power pole, we are able to do a lot more interesting building designs here. If we did not have this additional 1-2 kind of squares worth of power, we cannot use this setup very effectively at all, because you're going to need your inputs and your outputs. As you can see, we have red inserters and we have yellow inserters here, and they are all in a line. I'm just rebuilding what was already present here. And what we're going to find is that because of the medium poles, we're able to reach that far, and now we are able to simply supply coal as a fuel for these smelters to this middle line, and then we should be just fine to make sure that we are creating a type of influx in our iron ore production. So let's go back here, and we're just going to follow this path where there was obvious yellow belt destruction here. We might run out of resources for building purposes. We do. I'm going to create one splitter because it looks like there was one splitter here. And quite frankly, it looks like the splitter was going to here, and then there was probably an underground belt here, maybe probably right here actually. And then that was supplying maybe a train with fuel necessary to keep the locomotion moving. Okay. We do have a few more resources, and we're going to want to make sure that we do have coal here on this line. I'm going to want to make sure that I don't simply plop it right here and here. If you look to the right on the tooltip, it says expected resources, stone and coal. I do not want to have to split this. I don't want to use a splitter like I did up here to make sure that stone goes one way and coal goes the other way. I'm just going to adjust this belt a little bit. And I'm going to put coal and coal right here. And just change that up just a tiny bit. Make sure that's powered. My power poles right now look pretty ugly. It's not quite the way I would usually do it, but it'll work just fine for now. One of those times where you don't let best be the enemy of good. Right now, this will be good. As we see the bits of coal go down this belt here, pretty soon, we're going to have magic start to happen. And that's tremendous. Okay, so for now, I think I will start to pick up whatever extra items are here, and I expect all of these smelters will start turning on very, very soon. So we're going to let that work. When I get a couple extra resources, I'll probably build another electric miner, but for now we have iron production up and working. Let's take a look at our copper production and just kind of see what we have there. For just 1 second, let me take a detour. I'm going to build 2 repair packs. The repair packs are always pretty much going to go right here for me. And even though I am out of sections of wall, I don't really have any sections of wall in my hand. I'm just going to repair what's here, just so that way I have something. I do have in my vehicle, though, a whole ton of extra resources. I have iron plates, copper plates, a gun turret, some steel plates, and some copper. I'm going to make sure I also pick up half of the firearm magazines that are in there, just that way I have a little bit extra. This looks to be the only patch of copper we have anywhere near around. I'm going to hit M for my map. Yep, copper here. Coal, stone, iron, coal, but that is the only little bit of copper. So let's build just a few more of our electric mining drills with the resources that we just got from our vehicle. I am right-click to mining and kind of picking up this spaceship wreckage. I am not going to pick up this big spaceship. There is a certain division within the Factorio community. Some people say, oh, I get rid of that thing immediately. And they right-click and you can see the progress bar at the bottom and it will get rid of this spaceship. And they say that is the ideal way to play. We don't want this spaceship here. It is getting in the way of all these wonderful things that I might build. And then there is a group of people, myself included, who say, no, that is sacrilege. We cannot possibly do that. Wherever you stand in that particular discussion, I'm not going to blame or judge you. Just play the game the way you want. And there are times where, though it hurts my very soul, I will generally move the spaceship. Well, not move it because I can't pick it up and then put it back down. Once you right-click mine it, it just goes away forever. So I can't move it to put it back down somewhere else. But if it's right in the middle of the way, I will sometimes mine it to my great sorrow. But that's just kind of how the game goes. The factory must grow. All right, so I'm going to do the same basic deal I did over here. I'm going to preemptively put in that splitter right there because I know that that splitter is going to be where I get the rest of my belts in, and I'll just work my way backwards. Supply a little bit of power. and here. Oh, and here. And then we look to be in a pretty okay situation. So we have to do a little bit more with our inserters here. Remember, we are using the long-handed inserters to bring fuel off of the belt. And then in this close belt, the yellow arms will bring the raw materials. In this case, on this side, it will be the copper ore. Okay, so we now have iron ore being produced. We now have copper ore being produced. And let me just make sure that everything looks to be running. Do I have an input and an output on every one of my smelters? The answer was no. It is now yes. So we're doing quite well on that. Let's just continue to let this thing work. Where's the bottleneck right now? Well, you can see that this belt with the iron ore is currently overflowing. There's no problems there. We are supplying a belt and we are utilizing it. Looks like all the resources, but not all of them quite. This belt is saturated. It looks like we could probably do a little bit more to saturate this belt with the copper. So just to make sure that we don't have any problems in the future, I will start to make a couple of those other electric miners. In the same way that we made it our goal in the previous scenario to use our factory and our intellect to research some new technologies, that is ultimately going to be our goal here as well. And to make that happen, I'm going to use kind of a tried and true early game method that I usually have. And that involves making more or less a starter base. A starter base, quite frankly, when you're in the free play version, will usually last for it depends on who you are and it depends on how you design your factory. For me, I'm currently doing a playthrough where I'm about 10 hours in and I still consider myself in the early base kind of factory settings, and that's okay. There's no wrong way of playing Factorio, and if you say to yourself, wow, that sounds like a lot of time, that's reasonable, and maybe for you, you do things differently, so you don't have to worry about playing the game at that kind of snail's pace. But what the trade-off is for me is that I am then using a lot of my time to make infrastructure. I am going to hopefully eliminate some problems that I would otherwise have later, and where the dice will fall on that regard, time will tell. So I'm going to do something new here. I'm going to move my belts off of the line here because I want to get just a couple of base structures, and I'm already kind of planning out, like, where am I going to put some things. I'm probably going to end up doing something like that in just a second. But for now, I need some basic building materials, and thankfully a lot of these early base building materials just cost iron ore, or iron plates, excuse me. So I'm going to bring some power up here. Notice that I'm already out of some of my electrical poles. The game gives you enough raw resources, but overall, it's going to be a little bit of a slog to get things started if you try and craft everything manually by hand. So we are getting a couple of our iron gears into a box, and we're going to start making some belts, so I don't have to make belts myself. And I'm going to do something like this. This is a starter base idea that more or less was borrowed from and then adapted from some of a content creator on YouTube's early base building designs, and that would be Nilaus. If you know Factorio, you know of Nilaus. He is a tremendous builder. He is very effective. He's very efficient, and he does some pretty tremendous things. He's got a great depth and understanding of the game. I would very much encourage anyone to go check out the things that he does. I'm always very impressed with the work that he does, and I have no problem in saying if there's a wheel out there that is a good-looking wheel, let's not reinvent it. Though I have a lot of hours and I could absolutely build everything from scratch, there comes a point where you have a lot of principles from the game that, as you learned and as you've grown, have been more or less ingrained into you, and this is one of them. And that is just kind of this basic startup factory that gives me my my base research, my base building materials, the things that I will always need to continue on. And so right now I have built some gear wheels, and I'm putting the gear wheels on a belt. I am getting myself some green circuits, and I'm going to be getting myself a whole ton of other things very quickly, including, you will find, my my early bits of research for my science. Both red and green are going to kind of come into this area. While I'm thinking about it, I'm going to just kind of look at our science here. This is, as a reminder, the science that we have already researched. That is all the sciences that are in green. That'll be automation, optics, gun turrets, stone walls, military, logistics, weapon shooting speed 1, power, projectile damage, electronics, the red, or excuse me, the blue and the purple inserters. We do have heavy armor, steel processing a steel axe. We do have the green science already researched. Logistics 2, automobilism, the engine, automation 2, and so on. What I'm going to plan on getting first is actually going to be landfill. And the reason is because this water over here, it can be filled in, and you can't ever create water unless you have certain modifications on, but you can always cover water up just so you have additional building structures. I may have just enough room here. I may not. I'm not quite sure. We will find out very, very quickly. Okay. I continue to kind of get some basic resources here. I will make sure that I have, let's see, it goes like this and then this. I'm going to make sure that I have, oh wait, that's not correct. Here. Okay. I have to always remember exactly how I want to have things. And the nice thing is that even if you don't have things perfectly like flawless, you will figure out what works for you best after not too long. Okay, so I'm gonna do here, here, and I'm doing a nifty little trick here where, because this underground belt, essentially it has its other counterpart over here. It's moving this way, but the green side, the green circuits are going to stay on that side of the belt, and only there is room for the gear wheels to come on down. And that way I retain one full belt of gears and green circuits while still being able to pull some of my gear wheels off this belt. And this, if you remember, is what is necessary to make the red science. And so I'm going to immediately just make sure I leave myself enough room. And I will start off very small with 3. 3 of my red science producing, factories, my assembling machines. And then we will go from there. But we are immediately producing our red science, and that's very important because we already have 5 of these labs created. This might be a test. This might be a time where I may not be able to slip all of the necessary pieces into this build so I can make this work, and I cannot. Unfortunately, the spaceship is going to have to go. It hurts my heart to do that, but I needed the space. If I had looked a little bit more in the future, I maybe could have avoided that. It doesn't hurt my heart that bad. It'll be just fine. Okay, so their big spaceship is just gone, and we are producing our red science in small amounts. And I'm going to put them on a belt here, and this belt is going to go right over here. Perfect. Okay. 1, 2, and everything is all scienced up. Landfill, notice it takes both the red and the green science, and we have nothing here that actually only takes the green science. And so we are going to make sure that we have our second part of the build kind of ready, and that's going to involve just a few more of these assemblers. I am going to need to pull some of these basic resources off so I can not have to slow down my research and slow down my builds. I'm going to remove some of these structures here in place. It was doing just a perfect job, but it's going to end up not being as necessary in just a little bit. And so I'm going to get my green science going here. 1 and 2. Oops. And 2. One thing that you'll generally find if you're playing Factorio for a long time is one principle, and that is, can I make this thing look like a circuit board? Can I compactly get everything that I want and get everything that I need into this nice, neat little space? And oftentimes you're going to find out that yes, I absolutely can. And you may say to yourself, at what cost? And the cost is that oftentimes the longer you play Factorio, the more things are going to start to look the same. And that really breaks my heart a little bit, because unfortunately, things are just going to start to look the same, and there's not a whole lot that we can do about that. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I don't think that that's always necessarily bad if that's the aesthetic that you're going for, which is fitting everything into a nice small little space without major issues. I don't actually need an assembler there. I do need one there, and then I do need this red long-handed inserter here. Okay, notice that these undergrounds and these splitters do take some of these belts. And very quickly, we're going to make sure we have 1, 2, 3. We'll put it right there for now. 1, 2, 3 boxes, so that way we can catch these building materials that are going to be very, very necessary for us. For now, I'm just going to put that right there. I don't love the way that I've done this setup for this reason. I'm going to end up doing something like this, where I'm going to put another inserter here. This one assembling machine is going to supply belts to this machine, this box, this machine, and then this new little structure we're about to make here. And I'm going to send, let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to pick everything up again and start from scratch, because I'm going to want to make sure that I have one other structure in place, and that's actually going to make my build go just a little bit smoother here. And that is going to be to have one assembler here. Let's see. One assembler here, so that way I can make sure that my other assemblers up here are right on the center line, so that when I build my belt, it will be able to pop out exactly where I want it to. This is an example of, I have a very, very clear point in my mind of what I'm looking for. You may not, and that's okay. Don't feel like you have to know exactly what you want out of your build. Just kind of build the basic structures, figure out what you need, and then work your way backwards. That's what I would recommend you do, and I would recommend that you do your absolute best to not let yourself get overwhelmed. It's going to be very, very easy to see other people play Factorio and say to yourself, well, why am I not doing that? You know, I mean, oh gosh, that looks like that took forever for you to learn. And the answer to that is, well, I mean, to a certain degree, yeah, but the game does not require that you have some very in-depth esoteric knowledge. You don't have to be highly technical or specialized to enjoy the game. Just build the game and have fun. And I think you're going to find that a lot of people actually don't really play for some kind of, I don't know, major scary goal. They just play so that way they can enjoy building something new and fun and exciting. That's sure why I play anyway. Okay. Moving this up, moving this up. Notice that we are not actually getting all these materials down on this belt, and the reason is because we're end up taking some of our resources right here. We are taking lots of resources here for these gears, and also because our iron ore production is not keeping up with our smelters. So let's just take a quick walk up the line to see what else is here. It looks like if I am able to get a couple more iron plates and I actually build these miners everywhere that I would like to, that we could be in a much better spot. So it's going to hurt me just a little bit in the short term, but I'm going to take out some of these iron plates. Let's be real, that's why we have them. We have them so that we can use them. We're going to use this to increase our production very, very quickly. Okay. That's actually a part of the game that I truly enjoy, though, is kind of building something, making something, and then going back to figure out where are the improvements necessary, what else can I do to make this go right. Okay, so we've increased our mining capacity. That will in turn affect how much we can output with our iron plates. We are moving some of these iron plates that we collected earlier back out onto the line. I'm going to use another box here just to pull out half these resources and put half in for later. I've got some extra things here. I've got some random raw iron in my hand. Okay, everything's looking okay just now. So we now have the materials necessary for this green science here, the belts and the inserters. That is currently being crafted. And if you notice here, I'm going to find a way to snake that over here through the belt and make a little bit of sushi, but also find a way to supply both the necessary materials to make my red science and now my green science. And you see that they're bringing inserters off. Hopefully I will have just a few inserters in this box here that I can also use for later. And just to make sure that things are going well for me, I'm going to also make sure that I have more red inserters being produced. Note that the red inserters, the recipe calls for iron, gears, and inserters. So this line of iron and gears and green is starting to prove very, very important to make sure that everything stays organized and we're able to create what we're looking for and have it on hand when we need it. While you can absolutely craft things by hand, it's always just much nicer to have it waiting for you somewhere in a box. Okay. Perfect. Later on, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to move this inserter over here, and I will turn this red inserter into a yellow inserter and then have my red inserters over here, just so that way I can make sure that I am fully supplying my assemblers here that are creating my green science. But for now, it'll work out with no problems. What I will do with this assembler at this time is actually going to be to start creating ammunition. We do not have a lot of extra resources at this time, but a little bit of ammunition now might mean that I might not run out of ammunition later, and that can feel pretty good. So we're not going to have any extra iron kind of here at the end of the belt. It's just not going to happen at this time, unfortunately. But there's no problems with that. So long as we are getting things that we are going to eventually want or need, I won't feel too bad about our current system. I'm splitting off the gears and I'm splitting off the green inserters, and that's just so I can put them into their own separate boxes. Looks like I'm going to need to go foraging in just a second for some additional resources here. I'm out of wood. I like using wooden boxes. They're fairly cheap, and they're of course used for the power poles. Overall, this is a functional start to our base. We are creating the following: gears and green circuits which go into a box, but along the way that is also helping us to produce our underground belts, our regular belts, and our splitters. We are creating, in some capacity anyway, inserters. Unfortunately, they are also being used for our green science, and so it's going to be hard to get a little bit of a surplus of those. We're also getting our red long-handed inserters, and we have 3 assemblers of green, 3 assemblers of red, and that is currently providing all the necessary resources to get these 5 labs up and going. So far, a very successful start to this tutorial level 5, and then we can kind of start to think about, you know, what issues we might see, what other things might we want to consider. Right now we're making so much copper, it doesn't really matter. I will cap it off here just so that way maybe I might run out of coal. Probably not, but if I were to run out of coal, I would want to be conscious of my fuel usage there. The real thing that's going to happen is that this patch of iron ore is already at 20k left. That's not a lot. It's not a lot left. And so we are going to have to do as the objective in the upper left says, and repair the base and research automated rail transportation. Right after landfill finishes up, we are going to do that. Because I want to make this go just a little bit faster, I'm going to start the long, arduous task of creating some additional science labs. I guess that I can speed up the process considerably if I just use my resources that I've already partitioned off into a box. It's going to go like that. 1, 2, 1, 2. A couple extra inserters. That's going to take a minute. It takes so long. Okay. But now we are officially starting to supply all these labs, and then that begs the question, well, if you're supplying all these labs, can you actually keep up with the production? Right now the answer is no. Let's get a couple more assemblers just so we can make sure we have probably, let's see, what is that? 10 labs going at once. Let's just get something like this. That amount should do it just fine for us. More green assemblers than red assemblers, and the reason for that is because the green inserters, the green assemblers do take longer. They do take more, they take longer to craft from an assembling machine. Red science takes 5 seconds to make one red science pack. Green science takes 6 seconds. So one additional assembler will kind of offset that cost in time. We'll put that there, and here, and here. But I'm even going to end up taking off some of these resources off these belts here, just so that way I, again, have some of this extra building materials. No problems. Okay. Oops. That's a problem, though. Is everything working as intended? Yes. All right. So, the problem here is that, of course, we're not making belts as quickly as we'd like because there's we're starved for resources on the end of this belt, but we did finish our first little bit of research, and that was landfill. We've researched that. Now let's go straight into the trains, so that way we can really ramp up our production, ramp up our smelting, and go from there. So railway is being produced. While that's happening, I'm going to get just one or two more of these electric mining drills, so that way I can start making some landfill. Manually crafting everything by hand, because of course I am, because it takes just that long. Okay. Well, I suppose I do have this in a box. Tell you what, we're going to end up having two different sections that we are making some of our landfill. One is going to be devoted to this section right here. Just like this. And so then the stone is going to come out of the iron, or out of the wooden chest, and go into the assembler. It takes 20 stone to make one piece of landfill. It's pretty expensive, but right now this whole process was just kind of to get rid of that excess stone. And then over here we're going to do something quite similar. And we'll do it just like this, actually. We're going to do some direct insertion, which I've never actually done for this particular product, but I suppose it will work, and so why not? That will save us the cost of getting belts and things of that nature. Okay, I mentioned a second ago that I was going to start foraging for some resources. I know this map has many hidden and Easter egg type objects within it. I'm going to go get just two little caches now, one of which is right here. In this box, we have a new fun little toy that we get to play with. The reason why the game designers kind of put this in is so that way, even though you cannot build any more of these new toys, you get to play with them and get excited for the full game. This is the Defender capsule. We are going to get into that in just 1 second, but it will boost our offensive capabilities. And then here in this box, we have gear wheels, we have wall sections, and we have a new thing, solid fuel. Whereas the coal is a burnable fuel that has only 4 megajoules of power per unit, this solid fuel has 12 megajoules of fuel per unit, and it will also, when put into your vehicle like a car or a train, it will increase the top speed by 5% and it will increase the acceleration by 20%. So it's the first glimpse into better fuels making your machines run better that we will get in this game. So a nifty little pickup there from that cache. And while we're doing this, our little factory is just kind of humming away. And then, not too far away from our base, directly due west, we have this neat little cache here. What's in this cache? It looks like it's going to be a new thing for us. This is going to be an accumulator. That's going to be 75 accumulators and a couple of electronic circuits. The accumulators are basically the battery that can be used to store power for later use. Very, very useful when used with a solar panel. Right now, a solar panel on its own is producing the electricity. It is putting out 60 kilowatts of electricity, and that means that this accumulator is slowly getting 60 kilowatts of electricity over time. On the right hand side in the nice little tooltip there, you can see its energy is at 1.2 megajoules out of 5, 1.3, 1.4. And so when there's an excess of power, the batteries will charge, and when there is a increased demand for power, then of course the batteries will be drained. So we are going to probably use that to great effect later, because why not? It's a good way of just storing power for later use. Okay. So we're heading back into our main base. Railway has just been finished. Making our landfill here. Pretty good, pretty good. And so let's go up to our crafting menu and see what the new things are that we can craft. Here's the landfill recipe. Let's mouse over that to kind of get rid of that. We can now make rails. The rails are what, of course, the trains travel on. 1 stone, 1 steel plate, and 1 iron stick. That will give you 2 pieces of rail. Much in the same way that you get 2 transport belts when you craft from that one recipe, you get 2 rails when you use 1 stone, 1 steel plate, and 1 iron stick. So very nice there. We can now make the locomotives, which will require steel, electronic circuits, and engine units. The engine units, remember, we cannot craft by hand. You must make those in a assembler. Notice that we do immediately have some problems with the natives here. They are bullying us, absolutely bullying us. But they're none too bright because, of course, they are ignoring us. And the reason that we fell prey to that attack is because we were ignoring them, or more apt it is to be said that we were ignoring our poison cloud. Remember, pollution will, of course, go into the atmosphere, and so clearly that cloud has gone over to where the nearby nest of biters is. As you see here, it's kind of flashing on and off. And so I'm sure that this nest is where that whole attack came from. They destroyed a couple of things. This is, of course, nothing that we couldn't overcome. Even if they had turned on us, we would have found a way to overcome that fight. But still, it's mostly an annoyance, and it has, most importantly, stopped production here. We're going to have to get our power back and reconnected. Is everything back? Looks like mostly. Okay. Everything's back on. Perfect. So just while we're doing this, I'm going to make sure that we are researching the next section of railways. This will be automated rail transportation that will enable the building of train stops and setting up automated rail routes. And then as soon as we get back, we're going to end up doing something new, and that will be making sure that we have all the necessary materials to get trains. Okay. And what that's really going to entail is getting some more of those engine parts. If this part makes you a little bit nauseous, I do apologize. I am trying my absolute best to make sure that I don't zoom in and out frantically, because that does make me sick when I watch other people play Factorio like that. I'm trying not to do that. Unfortunately, the car has a similar effect, but there's not a whole lot that I can do about that. I do sincerely apologize. And it does make driving a little bit more difficult when I can't go in and out that quickly. But we have eliminated that threat that we've already talked about. And our car is repaired. Perfect. Okay, so as we mentioned, we're going to need engine parts, and the best way to do that right now is going to be just get a couple more of these assemblers, 1 and 2, and then getting the necessary intermediate products in this way. Remember, we've already got some of our blue our red long-handed inserters. I'm going to use those to make sure I got the resources coming in. And the only other thing that I need at this time is steel. I'm not making steel anywhere. And so I will do so right now. I'm going to keep this line of coal going out a little bit longer. I'm going to get 3 of these stone smelters here. And if I put them right here, I should be able to use my long-handed inserters to bring fuel to these inserters. I really wish I had one more medium electric power pole. I'm just going to borrow one. I'm going to borrow one from right here. There's a good chance I'm not even going to really need to set up trains from there, from the long distance mining setup. The iron ore is going to run out, and we end up using our copper not nearly as much as we do iron. So for now, I'm just going to hope for the best here. But you can see that we now are starting to put the iron plates in, and so we got steel being smelted here. But I mentioned there are several tricks to this scenario. And unfortunately, one thing the Factorio does not do amazingly is it doesn't really have a cohesive story. Story elements are a little bit hard to find. There are modifications that other very intrepid people have done to make some very good story modifications. So that way you can have something fun to follow along, a campaign, if you will. But otherwise, Factorio is mostly a sandbox building type of game. But the tutorial here does kind of afford us that unique opportunity to have some story elements, partially in the leftovers from other engineers that just we have to take over their base and you know, repair the base and make the best of it. And then sometimes in these little hidden gems that we can find dotting the map. It looks like there was some additional biters up here. As you see, they were congregating in this kind of death ball. They were eventually going to send their forces against us. So I'm glad that we actually went this way. It helped us figure out where we needed to go next. We're running out of ammunition fairly slowly. When you have 200 rounds of ammunition, that will go a pretty long way. I think that there's 10 bullets in every magazine, and so that's essentially 2,000 bullets. How many bullets does it take to kill a biter? I don't know. A couple, though, at least. I'm going to chop my way through this little bit of a forest here. But notice that the engineer has started to talk again. We did complete the research for automated train deliveries. And so then the engineer says in the bottom left there, he says, it's time to repair the railway and access the distant mines. I do agree. But allow me to make just one quick detour, as if I did not know what I was running into. So I've created this nice little path. I'm just going to walk right through. I needed the wood anyway, just for power poles and stuff. It looks like I'm not the only person that has been chopping down trees. What could possibly be up here? There is another abandoned base. Very, very interesting. This is kind of that story element that we were talking about just a second ago. Let's look at some of the new toys that they have over here. So we're familiar with ammunition. There's this car that is not ours, but it looks like it has several goodies in it. So lots of wood, which again, they've chopped down a lot of wood. There's steel here, steel chests, assembling machine 2s. That is the assembling machines, just the faster upgraded version. This gun turret, some transport belts, some small electrical power poles, and then 2 wonderful new things. We have now, in this car and in this base, a certain limited amount of electric furnaces. Electric furnaces are just like the stone or steel smelter furnaces, except they run entirely off of electricity. So there is no coal that is necessarily required to fuel that fire. So long as you have a constant supply of electricity, you're going to be just fine. I'm going to plop those down right now because it looks like what was happening is that there was a system set up whereby there was iron plates being created here, and then the iron plates were being fed directly into these other electronic smelters, these electric furnaces that were then creating our steel. So they were going from raw resources into plates, plates into steel, steel onto the belt, and then some additional plates over here. If we were to repair this base, it looks like we're going to have to go kind of out in this general direction. Looks like there was some destroyed small power poles here. Just going to repair those. Just kind of take a look up here. It looks like there is some electric miners that were up here on an iron patch over there. But because there's no power, let's see what they have for power here. It looks like there's a boiler here. It looks like another boiler and 2 steam engines were destroyed. But how were they powering this base? Well, that explains all the wood that's been cut down. All this wood has been put into these boxes with these burner inserters here. Let's see if we can bring this base back to life. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is I'm going to reinvest in these steam engines and these boilers. Like so. And then with just 2 more pipes, I should be able to connect the rest of this belt, of this whole deal up. This burner inserter is out of fuel. Let me put some fuel in there. Let me get 1 more burner inserter. And now we are using wood, but not coal, to power up this base, just to kind of get it kick-started off the ground. And because there's so much wood in there, I'm going to manually put a little bit of wood in there. And then I'm going to make sure I get, looks like 3 more burner inserters. 1, 2, 3, just to make sure that there's always an arm that does not require electricity to bring the fuel out of the boxes into this electronic section here. I'm going to keep 2 piles of wood for myself. But then I see lots of steel here. I'm going to pick up all this extra steel, and then these extra belts that were right here. I'm going to leave 1 belt in there just to remind myself what was in there, because it looks like there was some basic production that was going on here before the biters came to destroy this. So let's continue with kind of putting this base back together. I can definitely tell that there are some yellow belts that were going this way and this way. It looks like there was a splitter. that was going here. If I move this power pole just a tiny bit, I should be able to get this here. And now we know, just kind of from what we can see, that there's going to be some iron plate activity being created here. Iron plates created here that then are fed into these electronic miners here. Okay, so I don't have a whole ton of extra resources, but there's resources being created here, so that gives me the go-ahead to repair this base, put the red inserters where the red inserters were going, and put the yellow inserters where the yellow inserters were. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Adequately power these machines. How do I adequately power that? There we go. Okay. All right, perfect. So this is all working with no problems. I'm going to put one more power pole right there. And one more inserter there. And now this mining operation, this mining and smelting operation is now fully operational. I am going to kind of re-wall in some of this section. Note that there is concrete here on the ground that has been used to kind of pave this base. If I had some stone brick in my hand, I could pick up this base, the concrete that's been used here. I'm not going to do that. But the concrete can also be turned into this kind of hazard concrete. It's just really thematic. It's just there for looks. It doesn't actually give it any additional stats or do anything fun and special. It just helps you kind of keep track of things. I'll often use this hazard concrete under my pipes that are going a long distance away, so that way I can see them better as I'm driving through with my car. And then that way I don't destroy anything, which would be very sad. So as I reconnect this long line of steel, looks like the steel is going to travel down this belt and then into these steel chests over here. And I'm going to continue to let it do that. It looks like there was some kind of belt production here, much similar to the belt production that you've seen me do several times. And so I might as well get that back in action. Looks like I'm very out of resources, so here and here we know that this has got to be gears, because gears are used to make these belts. And then once these are supplied with these red inserters, then the base here is being repaired, and there is a use for some of this extra iron plate. If I put one yellow inserter right here, we will start making ammunition again. I'm going to pick up the ammo, and I'm going to run home because it sounds like we are having some problems here with the natives here. Okay. Real quickly, I'm going to do one last thing. It's going to take me more time than I like it to, but I'm going to put a radar down, and we will talk about the radars in just 1 second. Alright, let's go see if we can save our base. So far, we've lost an electric mining drill, 3 belts, and 1 small electric pole. And every time you hear that kind of beeping sound, that means we are losing more things. What are the enemies doing? They are destroying our copper ore production. How could they? And the answer is probably very easily. Probably was not a very difficult thing for them to do. Sometimes when the biters destroy parts of your base, it's kind of difficult to see like a destroyed belt here, for example. And so it's sometimes worth it just to make sure that your lines are clear like that, and just run over with another belt in case there has been a fully destroyed section there. We've not been researching anything for the last little bit. Let's get this new rail signal. We're not going to use rail signals for the purposes of this tutorial, but it will be nice to have all the same. Let's check our map. Where are the enemies? It looks like they are over here. Let's use one of those new toys that we talked about earlier, and that is this Defender drone. So the Defender drone, if you mouse over it, this Defender capsule, it says it has a range of 20, a throwing speed of 4 per second. It says it creates 1 Defender. The robot has a 45-second lifetime. It has a range of 15. A shooting speed of 3 and damage of 8, and it will move around very, very quickly. So if I have the Defender capsule in my hand and I left click, 1 Defender capsule will be consumed and 1 Defender will be deployed. I'm going to deploy 2 Defenders here. The clock is ticking because they take 45 seconds. I am not shooting here. I'm doing nothing. The Defenders are doing the shooting for me, and they are doing it very effectively. Basically, I've tripled my offensive output for a short time because they do about as much damage and they shoot about as fast as I do, if I was using the pistol anyway. you can understand how if I had a whole swarm of these defenders, that they could do a significant and meaningful amount of damage for me. As it is, I'm going to help them kind of run through the space a little bit more. But as the pollution cloud gets bigger, what you will find is that the biters will get bigger as well. The more enemies that are destroyed and the more pollution that is consumed, the bigger the biters will grow and the nastier and the uglier there will be. And so there will always be this kind of eternal arms race. Who is going to be able to defeat who? And the best thing you can do is make sure that you are staying on top of your pollution cloud in some way, kind of clearing out the edges of your pollution cloud, and also researching technologies that will make it easier for you to overwhelm your enemies. Looks like there's no other enemies kind of here in this pollution cloud. Maybe there's something in there, but we are not quite sure. Notice that in the previous moment there, when the enemies attacked our base here, I was able to mouse over and I clicked here and the mouse immediately snapped to where the alert was, but I can't actually see my base here. What's going on? I can go over to this other base and I can see this. What's happening? Well, I plopped down this radar. We have used radars thematically in the past. Radars do more than just scan for lost shipwrecks. Radars are very functional in the sense that even though I'm not here, I have more or less a remote connection to this area that this radar is in. And I will be able to see from afar what is going on. And of course, you can understand how that could be very, very useful to make sure that there's cohesiveness in your base. Sometimes it will help you to make sure that, oh, there's biters attacking me. Are they going to be dealt with? Do I need to rush back immediately? Little things like that can help you out a lot. And it will also help you as you are eventually transitioning into doing things from afar. More and more you will find that as you go through Factorio that you will be able to make a lot of good things happen remotely. You're not going to manually mine every bit of copper ore. You're not going to build every building. You're not going to do everything yourself. Oftentimes, you're going to advance to the point where you are some sort of omniscient god, and then you will direct the work from afar. We'll talk about how we do that in a little bit. So we already mentioned that we have this new toy, the Defender Capsule. We can't build these in this tutorial level 5. They are again used for some later things. We have talked about this electric furnace here. I do have just a few left. Otherwise, the majority of them are up in that other kind of base here. As I pick up these engine units that have been slowly chugging along, very, very important because they are necessary to build trains. I'm also going to show you this other bit of fun little technology that is new to us. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, I left it in the car at the other base. So let's go real quick. Hurry, hurry, hurry. It's not too far of a distance, but it's probably longer than you would want to belt resources over to or from. It'll make more sense to me to only occasionally come back to this other kind of smelting outpost, rather than get one long belt that will bring steel into my factory. I could absolutely do that. And in fact, I have belted resources in from a lot farther of a distance than that. And yet, it's less than advisable. But we do have these new two things. This is a speed module, and this is an efficiency module. So, in a lot of your buildings, like your assemblers, and your miners, you are going to find, or your smelters, well, and your miners, you're going to see that they have these slots here. What are these slots? It says modules, allowed modules, speed modules, efficiency modules, 1, 2, and 3. Mousing over these modules, it says the speed module will increase the machine speed at the cost of increased energy consumption. If it says increased energy consumption or decreased energy consumption, that also means increased or decreased pollution as well. So for additional energy, these machines can work faster, whether you are smelting items faster, whether you are building items in a machine faster, whether you are up by your miners and you are using your miners faster. You can increase their speed by putting these modules into these machines. And so this machine is going much faster. On the flip side, I can conserve energy by using these efficiency modules. They decrease machine energy consumption. The max it can be decreased to is to only 20% of its total cost. This one efficiency module will decrease energy consumption by 30%. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I might as well just do that one more time. And then that will ultimately lower the amount of draw that I'm requesting. Right now I'm at 2.4 megawatts back and forth. But if I take out all these efficiency modules here manually, then what you're going to see is that I go from 2.4 up to a solid 2.6, 2.8. And so these efficiency modules can be very, very useful to make sure that you are keeping good touch of your power. And then, of course, the speed modules can be used to help you create your factory in the way that you see fit and to increase the efficiency and the speed in which you do things. Okay, so some new fun toys. I'm going to make just one quick change here. And that is that I'm going to go into this base. I'm not going to destroy everything. I'm going to go into this base. I'm going to put an electric inserter here and here. Just so that way, yes, the burnable inserters are always going to be in fashion, but this way I'm also going to make sure that I never have any problems with my power consumption. I'm always going to have enough fuel in these inserters. So let's turn our attention now, since this base is being taken care of and we have our basic base built up back at home, let's focus again on this objective: repair the railway and set up automated rail deliveries. Let's go back on out here, go on home, and as we do so, remember we picked up those engine units. We can now build a locomotive. For another 3 engine units, we're going to be able to build a second locomotive, and in fact we are going to end up doing so for this reason. You can build, absolutely, in Factorio, a very robust rail system to meet whatever demands that you would like to place upon it. You can have multiple rails all going in the same direction. You can have a one-way rail that goes one way the other way. Or you can do as this base is set up to do now, and that is to have one rail that has the ability to work with double-headed trains. We're going to start doing a little bit more mining here. I'm going to start putting some of this stone in a box. The stone is going to be useful. Why isn't that working? Very strange. We're going to do this so that way we can have some stone ready for some later adventures here. It's going to take stone to make the rails, and so I'm going to want to make sure that I have that starting to be available to me right now. But again, as I go over here to my engine units, if I build another locomotive, and if I build the appropriate rails, I will be able to place a train, the main locomotive engine, either going this way. As you can see, the head of it is kind of pointing this direction right now, or pointing the other way, and I can rotate it right now. I think I can rotate it now. Yes, I can place it down and I can hit R to rotate it depending on which direction I want to go. But whereas you usually see rail locomotives in real life, at least I do, I see generally 1, 2, or 3 locomotive engines pointing one way, and then lots of cargo behind it, and then maybe some additional locomotives behind it that help push. We can also do something else here, where we utilize a 2-headed train upon the successful completion of one of these cargo wagons. If I can get it. It's a big if. We're struggling right now. Oh. We need more. We need more basic resources. Let's get a couple of these undergrounds, a couple of these splitters. Let's get a... Oh, we've got way too many of these green circuits. That's all I'm going to need. Maybe for the... Not for the rest of the game, but for a minute. And here's all these gears that I have. I will need no more gears at this time. Where did all my resources go? It's all in gears because I didn't limit my boxes, and now I'm sad. Is everything else limited? We better check. Aha, ammunition here is not limited. That might be a problem for later. Okay. How about here? Yeah, that's good. 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 Okay. But with the resources we just collected, we'll get 1 cargo wagon here. I know I'm going to want another one, but I can conjoin my cargo in the middle and then have a locomotive facing this way and this way. And so then that way, I'm able to use the trains to go back and forth without any issues. One locomotive can go backwards at any time. I can manually control the train like I would a car. I'm using my W, A, S, and D keys. That's my W. There's my S. Here's my D will help me turn right, but of course I am a train, and so trains better not be off-roading. If your train is not on the rails, buddy, you got a serious problem there. But if I'm using these trains in conjunction with a double-ended kind of deal like this, I will be able to set up automated rail deliveries and go both ways up and down this one single track. Iron ore processing. Let me click on my train, and then I have my fuel over here. Currently, fuel is being added to my hopper. And then I can hit add station, and currently on this line, it shows all the different train stations that I have access to. Iron ore processing. That is where we are currently at. You see on this little map here, it says iron ore processing. I can click on the train stop itself and it'll say iron ore processing, but I have iron ore processing, and then I have several conditions that will make sure that I am effectively micromanaging each and every single train to my desired capabilities. For example, here I'm going to say iron ore processing. I want to make sure that I have empty cargo here. I could have multiple conditions. I could say I need to have an empty cargo here, and I want my train to wait at least 120 seconds or however many seconds. I could also add a condition that says there must also be inactivity for 5 seconds. That means that nothing can go onto the train or off the train for 5 seconds. I could say something like I want to have a certain item count. I will only leave during this certain time, if I have all of my fuel, let's say it's going to be 300 bits of coal. Whatever the case may be, I have all these different ways I can manage my trains, and just so we are all on the same page, that is time passed, inactivity, full or empty cargo, a certain item count in the cargo, a fluid count in the cargo, some kind of circuit condition that is laced up to the train depot, whether or not there is a passenger present, etc. So right now at iron ore processing, I know that this is where I'm going to drop all of my cargo. I want to make sure that this train will stay here until we have no cargo here in this train. If right now I go from manual and I click automatic, the train is going to set off because this cargo wagon has no resources here. So the train wants to leave, but we don't have another station here. If I hit iron ore mine and I say I want to make sure that I only leave the iron ore mine when it is full, it says, okay, that sounds great, but this is in red. I can't actually get there. Why is that? The train says that there is no path. It says that there's no path because there are sections of the rail that are completely destroyed. This is a section that works. This is a section that's destroyed. So we're going to want to pick up some of our stone and make sure that we are building appropriate levels of our, let's see, picking up the appropriate levels of rail that is going to be necessary to kind of complete this scenario. While I'm doing this though, I'm also going to hit manual mode. I don't want the train to take off, and I'm going to want to make sure that I add another cargo wagon to my train. I'm going to run basically a double-headed 1-2-1 train. I'm going to manually fuel this one. I could use the solid fuel. I'm just going to use coal. Okay. And I'm going to manually drive the train up these train tracks. I'm going to use my pipette tool to mouse over the train tracks. Wherever there is blue, that means that there's no problem. Where there's green, that means I could place some train track down, and I'm going to just follow the train track that was already in place. And this can sometimes be a little bit squirrely. It's not the best method. It's not the easiest user interface. How about that? To kind of put down these train tracks. Sometimes you end up having things happen in a way that you didn't really want, but overall it will work fairly well. We are now at this new mining outpost out here in the boondocks, and this is train stop iron ore mine. Let's just hit this little button here that says go to iron ore mine, and our train continues, and it stops. And it stops because we are not meeting the condition of full cargo inventory. The engineer now says, all right, I have the railways deliveries set up. That means I can really start to ramp up my production. I agree. But to make sure that we get power out here, we have a couple of options. We could potentially utilize the water from this lake and then maybe another coal source somewhere, and then we could make sure that we have a small power plant right here, or we could do something else. I'm going to just make sure that I have these big power poles that bring electricity back from my home base. The engineer does say we can really ramp up our production. However, the natives in this area are growing increasingly hostile. I should gather what I can in my car and then try and find somewhere safer to set up a more permanent base. Our final objective in this tutorial is going to be to get 200 rounds of piercing ammunition, the red ammo. It's going to be to get 200 steel plates, 250 gear wheels, we've already got that, 500 electronic circuits, we pretty much already have that, and then 200 solar panels. We are going to need additional resources to make that happen, and we do need to get the power out here. So let's go back into manual mode and use our W, A, S, and D keys to kind of drive. And rather than, you know, I guess the one thing I could do, I could research electric energy distribution 1. That will give me the medium electric poles and the big electric poles that I can create on my own. I don't just have to pick them up. We are going to research that right now, but I'm also going to take a little bit of a shortcut. I'm going to go back into town. And I know that there's some big electric poles on the rail line that is going towards the copper patch. And so I'm just going to liberate those. 1, 2, I'm probably going to need like, what, 5 or 6? 3, 5. 1 more. Just to be safe. Okay, so now I took those extra little bits of power poles into my inventory. And I do the long walk back. In fact, where's my car? If I hit map, you can always see your car is always going to be this kind of red-white triangle right here. You can see the train is mouseable. You can mouse over it. You can click on your train from your map section here. But I know that my car is by my train. So I'm going to pick up my car. I'm just going to keep it in my hand. Oof. Okay, and because I'm going to basically ignore copper production for this game, I am going to pick up these belts. I know, I said that I would try and rebuild the base as it was originally made by those engineers that we never got to meet, but meh, they're not using it, and I need it, so I'm going to pick up all these extra little bits of infrastructure, so that way I don't have to worry so much. Okay. Let's make sure that our big power poles that are heading out west are connected to some of our power poles here. Let's go right here. How about? Let's hop back in the train. And if I hit M, I will be able to, for the first time, kind of point out that you can see where the power poles are connected. If I hit this electric networks button, which is the second from the left on the top hand side, right under the map, then you can see where you do have power connected and where you don't. It looks like we're missing 1 power pole here, maybe 1 here, and maybe 1 here. So it looks like it's only actually 3 power poles that are necessary to complete the circuit. Are these connected? No, because this is actually a destroyed power pole right here. But if I rebuild it, we're going to join up that piece, and we're just going to get power all the way out to this base. Now is a great time to mention that once we get this base working out here, it is going to create a lot of pollution. We've mentioned how the ways you can manage pollution are things like building next to trees, things like knowing that the ground is going to take a certain amount of your pollution and just kind of deal with it for you. But we don't really have any trees around here. We're on desert tile. Desert tile is immediately going to kind of spit this pollution out, and our pollution cloud is very quickly going to disperse over this base and any other bases that are up here. And trust me, believe you and me, there are bases up there that we're going to have to worry about. So, with that being said, we're going to have to kind of be aggressive with our plans right now to expand in a way that suits our needs. I know that the natives were here first, but I care more about me and feeding my family than I care about them. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that we go and turn this to automatic. The train has gone right to the stop. It looks like all of our inserter arms are taking the raw resources into the boxes, and from the boxes into the cargo for our train. We are now being able to automate the long-range mining, transportation, and eventually smelting of these resources. So though your iron, copper, coal, and stone patches will eventually dissipate, you're going to be okay. So long as you keep your head, don't do anything rash, you'll find a way to exploit other resources on the map, and then carry on building your factory. I am going to make the general defenses over here as best as I can. I've got 26 of these gun turrets. I do have plenty of my own ammunition. I'm going to have one electric laser turret there, one there, and I'm going to put 1, 2, and 3 gun turrets all around. And the combination of lasers and bullets is not a bad thing to mix. Some people will say, well, I have laser turrets, why would I ever need my gun turrets? And to that I say, well, in the same way that I sometimes will still use my burner inserters, just because I know that they are never in the event that I'm out of power, they're always going to work. In the event that I run out of power with my laser turrets, it's nice to know that I have the more low-tech option that will still work very, very well. So let's go to M for map. And if I turn off my pollution cloud, you can see this other kind of red circle. That indicates the range of my turrets. It looks like I have full coverage around my base. If the enemies come, they will have some turret that is engaging with them, and that should prevent this base from being overrun. That is my plan as it currently stands. Do I have my car? I have 2 cars right now. I'm going to put one of these cars down. I'm going to load up with the solid fuel, and we're going to go hunting because our pollution cloud is big and getting bigger. We don't have a lot of means to fight the biters now. We do have these defender capsules, and we do have our submachine gun that is mounted on our vehicle. So let's go 1, 2 of these little defender bots. And that's just going to be to help kind of keep the enemies off of me. As you can see, running into a tree is a bad move. It's always a bad move anyway. That's whether it's real life or in Factorio, but it's especially bad when you're fighting biters, because all of a sudden, hey, I was trying to run away from you. I can now not run away from you. I'm going to take some damage from you, and you're going to get surrounded and swarmed. And you're not going to be able to drive in circles. If you drive in circles, that's probably going to be the best way that you can eliminate a lot of biters in a very quick and efficient kind of manner. You'll usually see me just kind of drive right around their little base here. They'll chase me. They're not going to hit me. And I'm going to meet my goals without any other problems. Those 2 defender capsules go down. We're going to research military 2 because we are going to need those red piercing rounds of ammunition. Because the pollution cloud's going to get all the way out here, I might as well start to get out here. Oops. When I'm fighting, by the way, and I've said before, I'll say it again, that combat is not the reason why we play Factorio. But if I'm fighting, I will generally try to kill the worms first. Their static defense is pretty bad, and then they will also leave a poison trail on the ground wherever their spit lands. And that just feels bad. To run through that and to still take damage and then to be slowed on top of it. It's just, you know, add that to the list of things I don't really need in my life. I do not need that kind of negativity in my life. Oops. If you notice, I am running over some of these biters. You can totally run over biters. That's not a problem. But what you will also find is that it will cost you a little bit of your hit points to run over biters, trees, things like that. Because why wouldn't it? This car is getting dangerously low and it does explode. That's very unfortunate. And the real reason why that was sad was because it was kind of the last shot of that worm before there was the end of its road. But also there was some ammunition in that vehicle that sadly went down with the ship, and it is not recoverable. Thankfully, I do have a second car, so I'm not going to be out here and sad for too long. I don't know how big the poison cloud is going to get very quickly, but we will come back another time. I'm going to show you one more of the many secrets that are on this map, and I'm not going to show you every secret on this map. I want you to play this tutorial yourself and find all of the secrets out there. And again, there are many. But here's one more secret that I am fully well aware of. We know about solar panels and we know about accumulators, and it looks like the engineers before us built this gigantic farm of solar panels and accumulators. Knowing that I need to get 200 solar panels to complete this game, I'm just going to pick up all these solar panels. And medium power poles to boot? That sounds great! This is not necessarily the way that I like to build my solar farms. There's a little bit of wasted space in here. It's you know, it's not a bad thing in Factorio. to build sprawling factories. Oftentimes you will, and oftentimes you must, because later on that extra space is going to be important for you. Space is unlimited in Factorio. In these tutorials, it is not, because the map sizes are predefined. In the actual way that you play Factorio, the map is essentially limitless. You can, I guess, find the end of the map, but you're literally going to be traveling by nuclear-fueled trains for hours in order to find the edge. You will never use the entire map for Factorio. So, with that being said, space is not really a resource that you have to keep track of. Space is just out there, and so it doesn't hurt you to really keep things expanded. And so having a very tight design is not critical. And so this deal here where you have, you know, this like this, and then space, and then, you know, power poles and whatnot, it's fine. It's just fine. However, I also like to use some other blueprints. This is an example of a blueprint. Blueprints are something you can make, copy, and paste, and throw into your general library of different things you can build in Factorio. Now, we've seen me use the ghost, right? When I'm designing my factories, I'll sometimes use this, and then I'll kind of explain some things. I'll say, well, I can do my arms here, and I can do my that, and, you know, whatever. The blueprint is essentially putting a ghost down. As you've seen, it can sometimes be very helpful to see where certain items should go in my factory, but maybe more importantly, it can be used to make sure that you have appropriate space between items. The not very cool part is that when you do a ghost, it doesn't actually build the items for you, and then it can be very annoying to have to go in yourself and manually do all these things. If I go back to my factory, not this one because I didn't put a radar down. If I go back to this factory, and if I hit copy, and then I click and drag, and I come back here. If I throw this down, how long is it going to take me to make sure I have every single inserter here and every single belt and all this stuff? It's going to take me a while, is the point. Not to scare you, but later on, there's a new stage in Factorio that is unlocked once you get robots. Yes, you are the engineer. You're the only engineer that there ever will be. And yet you can remotely use your minions to create your big, beautiful, wonderful base for you. And these bots can use the blueprints that you have, that you throw down, and if they have access to the materials necessary to complete the project that is in the blueprints, they will do so. They will go to the inventories that you set up, the little junctions and things like that, the little boxes where you can put the items, and they will fly to the box, and then they will pick up the item, and they will place it on the ground for you. There's going to come a time, as I said earlier, where you as the engineer are not manually building everything, and that actually feels really, really good. If you like Factorio in the beginning stages where you are building things by hand, I identify with that 100%. I love the early game. Generally, you know, I like to do my playthroughs where I will, you know, surely launch a rocket, but at that point it's kind of, you know, I get the bots, I get past, you know, chemical science and things like that. And then I kind of yearn for the simpler days when it wasn't, you know, everything built by bots. Other people, the game only really starts for them once they get bots. There's no wrong way of doing that. There's no wrong way of thinking. Play the game in a way that is enjoyable for you. But if this is something that you find overwhelming, don't worry. You'll be able to use them or not. And if you look at that and you say to yourself, wow, that's pretty exciting, I can't wait to use bots, they are pretty darn sweet. So I am fully supportive of any kind of way that you feel about bots. Okay, worth noting though that I just picked up 50, 100, 150, 162 of those solar panels. That's a pretty good shortcut to making sure that I have all of the items here that I need, all these supplies I'm supposed to gather for my car. In the short time that we've been away, let's see, how big is our poison cloud? It's big and getting bigger. But rather than go on the offensive right now, I'm just going to let those defenses that I built take care of things for me. Okay. Let's see. Unfortunately, I didn't put a radar up there, but the evidence that this process is working is right here. Whoops. we've automated our deliveries so that when this 300 or so ore is into these boxes and out of the trains, then it will go back until it is full. Empty cargo inventory, this progress bar just indicates that there's just like a little bit left over. And then once this green progress bar reaches the end, once there is 0 ore left over in this cargo, it will go back. And once it is full of cargo inventory at the iron ore mine, then it will once again come back, and so on and so forth. We are at 50. We are at 30, 20, 10, and goodbye. Alrighty. Later on, it'll be really nice. You can set up multiple trains on the same line, and you can kind of have just like a loop with stackers where, you know, say that you have like a waiting area for you. You kind of maybe deviate from the main line. Not like that. Maybe you, not like that either. This is the part of trains that is kind of a little frustrating, is that they don't build very well like that. But maybe you have a system here where maybe you have 2 trains, and then one train will go in, and then the other train will go to here. You'll have like a temporary stop in here where it'll stay off of the main railroad way, and then we can have 2 trains, one that sits here, one that goes in there, and then once the other one goes back to get more resources, it fills out. You can make some very elaborate designs. Things like this. That's not necessarily elaborate, but this is an example of a train setup that I would potentially use, where I could have trains that come in on the right-hand side. They will go into this kind of waiting area, and they'll stack up maybe 1, 2, 3 trains full of iron ore. And then as they have space available right here, right before this train stop, they will go in, the resources will come off post-haste, and then they will continue on their merry way. Just have this one belt, always driving on the right-hand side. And then this is basically mirrored over here. That is not, I wouldn't say, elaborate, but it's a system that I made, and I like it, and it works. So, trains are very important. Again, if there's an itch that you have where you say to yourself, hey, that's pretty cool, Factorio is a really cool game for trains. Okay. Let's get back to our objectives. Steel plates. Well, I can tell you right now that we are not going to need to worry too much about our steel plates. We are going to have all the steel plates that we need from this other kind of resource here. I can mouse over this steel chest, this resource processing plant. We have 900 bits of steel in this steel chest alone over here. That's not going to be a problem. Let's start putting other things into our car right now. I'm going to fuel it up. I'm going to step in just so that the color changes to my color. And we're going to put in 1, 2, 3 bits of iron gear wheels, and we see 300 out of 250 gear wheels in this car. We've met that objective. We need 500 green circuits. Let's just go take a look. I've currently got, looks like 263 here. There should be another 200 right here. Our production is crazy. It's not working at all. I could put all of these solar panels into the car right now, and I would get up to 162 out of 200. I'm just going to throw some of these down just so I have some power. It looks like my coal production over here is very, very low, to the point where it's just not even working. It's probably been those other solar panels that have really kind of kept things going for me, but not really in a very good way. So let's just throw these down just to kind of help out. And then the last thing we're going to do is pick them up and then use them to meet our objective. It's probably nighttime right now, I'm guessing, and so there's probably not a lot of, I don't know, probably not a lot of sunshine, probably not going to get a lot of power out of this, but it'll make enough. It'll make enough. Okay. Yeah, you can see that it's actually getting, it's almost nighttime, so we're just about to the end of that. I will go manually put in some of this coal here into these boilers, just to keep the lights on. It's not going to last very long, but it'll help get us through the night anyway, and then the solar panels will kind of kick on a little bit. Just because of this kind of power problems that we're having, I'm also going to throw down a couple of accumulators. We don't actually need to take accumulators with us, so they're just going to be here for a very, very short term help. Gonna need two. I'm gonna need two bits of power pole here, unfortunately. I don't really care. I'm not building it to last. I'm just building it for the short term. Okay. And I am going to use some of my solid fuel because it has a higher fuel density, fuel value. That should last a lot longer than the coal will. And you can see that the solar panels are kicking back on. That's because we are officially through the middle of the night. If I go to this kind of range here, you can tell this has been my power consumption. When my solar panels are working at 100%, I was making about 900 kilowatts of solar panel or solar production. And then as it got later and later into the night, my power production dipped and dipped and dipped until it hit zero. And then after a short time, it kicks back on until it's daytime again. And then you just kind of repeat that pattern. The reason why the production's going up here now is because I added all of these solar panels during the night, and so this new day's worth of power consumption is going to be much higher than the 900 kilowatts of power that we currently had powering our base via solar. Okay, again, back on track. Things that we need. I don't think I need any more of these engine parts. I'm so confident in that I'm just going to get rid of those structures. It's never a bad thing to get rid of the structures if you don't need them, but it's not good either. It just kind of is. It just is what it is. But I really want this spot here to start making ammunition, because I know that I'm going to need 200 rounds of piercing ammo. I currently have 19 in my hand there because I ended up using a lot of my ammunition to go kill biters. And this assembler down here that was making ammunition, it was only getting the very dregs of whatever was left over, and so it wasn't getting a very consistent supply of power. I need to kind of find a way to either divert some of these early resources right to here so that way it, as a priority, gets all the resources that it wants, or I can just move it further up this production line and it will get the first bite of the apple. I'm going to turn off this section here. I do not need to be making any more steel. I knew that a while ago, but just for the purposes of just to kind of exemplify what you could do, I did put those in place a long time ago. I've got more room though now, so let's just increase our output as well. Oops. Just like that. Okay. We're going to need steel and copper here. I could, of course, bring some copper directly over here off the line. Let's do that. It looks a lot better than if I just put everything into a box. Again, it'll work just fine to put it into a box because it's a short-term goal, and it won't be like a long-term structure, but in the interest of making our factories as long-standing, as self-repeating, as automated as possible, we will try and make sure that this works like this. And as I say that, in the very same breath, I then put steel into a box. Oh well. But that should be all of the steel that we need to kind of make this start working. And actually, I'm going to change this up a little bit. I think that it takes 1 second to craft a little bit of yellow ammunition. One of these yellow ammo crafters can supply 2 of these red ammunition crafters. And so, I'm just going to expand production just so things get done a little bit quicker. And because I know that this belt is only using one side, I'm going to put my steel all the way down here. And then as it goes up the belt, it will be easy to get all of what I need on that one single belt. Let me put this over here. It's not pretty, but it'll work. And it is automated. Okay. Other ways I can improve this, let's use some blue inserters to make sure that there's always ammunition here, and that this transfer is going well. Same here. And then we are going to need to get some additional solar panels. For solar panels, we just completed that. The recipe is copper, steel, and green circuits. Let's see. There's copper. Green circuits are going to be right here. And then I'm going to put just a box for the steel right here. Okay. And that should continue to work. Won't work very quickly, but it will work. This is not going to work very well, but I'm going to let it work as best as it can. Okay. And this is just going to be me trying to double my green circuit production. It's going to have a little bit of a bottleneck. Not too bad, actually, it looks like. Because of the blue inserters, it should be just fine. These inserters, these assemblers are going to be able to keep up. If anything, right now, it looks like if I help it out just a little bit, it'll do just fine. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Now we got green circuits aplenty. Hopefully enough to get 15 at a time. But if not, we will put in what we have to. Let's make sure we get 500 here. We do. We're 46 over. We're 9 over. 500 exactly. And then I can devote the rest of these green circuits over here. Okay. This might be a time, since again my objective is just to get these materials into my vehicle, where I could potentially cut production. I could say, look, I don't need to be creating any more of these structures or anything that'll make science. I don't really need to spend resources to get advanced material processing or gates or tool belts or things like that. And so I won't. And so I won't. But otherwise I will leave the production where it's at. With these 2 machines going and with this 1 machine going, with the additional materials we have coming down this belt, and with all of this extra iron ore that is coming from our new mining out west, we are getting this belt saturated. We are producing these firearm magazines as quickly as possible. It is supplying everything that's necessary here. And we are getting these red piercing ammo magazines fairly quickly. We are already at 56 out of 200. Let me just make sure that the solar panels is going to keep up. Oh, that'd be very important to make sure that we have an exit. There was 4 solar panels just sitting there because we didn't have any place to put the excess solar panels, and you can only stick 4 solar panels here in this assembler at any given time. Okay. This is probably a really good time to put down some of our speed modules. If I click on this assembler 1, it does not have any place I can put the assembler or the speed modules. For assembler 2s and 3s, they will have space for the modules. 1, 2. We just increased the production here for our assembling machine by a lot. It looks like the natives, we've gotten our poison cloud all the way out here, and they have just attacked but failed to do any damage to our base out there. But with this additional speed here, we should get those solar panels just a little bit quicker. And then let's do the same thing over here. Let's get just a little bit of our steel back, create a couple of these extra machines, and then plop in some speed modules. Okay. And not efficiency modules, because I don't care about the power consumption. With this additional solar here, we shouldn't have any major problems with that. We're currently at 109 solar, 109 plus 53, plus the ones over here, 53, 68, 68, 76. We need about 25 solar panels about in this box here. We're already at 12. So it's probably going to be the red ammunition that still slows us down, although we're coming up pretty quick. We're at 53 rounds of piercing ammo. It's coming on. I'll put some of this extra yellow ammo into these assemblers. It's not really going to speed up the process, but a man can dream. A man can dream. One other blue assembler here and here. More speed. Oh. More resources. and just increasing production. Okay. 3 is better than 2. My math checks out. As we wrap up this tutorial, though, again, there's lots of secrets that we haven't done. There's a lot of value you can get out of just playing this tutorial for yourself. I specifically did not do things to the extreme. I didn't over-engineer anything, although I could have. I did not make anything fancy, although I could have. And my hope is that you will take the time to explore the map and find all of its many secrets. I would look in the corners. I would look kind of in this area, etc. I would look for the 1 bit of uranium on the map. There's one single patch of uranium. Go find that. I recommend that you set up your trains here yourself. That will also bring in your copper ore. That'll be very, very fun for you. And maybe find a way to link this base and this base. I think you have a lot of opportunities. This is a very unique scenario. It will afford you many opportunities if you will take them. You can have so much fun. So much fun with these tutorial levels. And otherwise, if you're interested in this game, you can find this exact tutorial that I've been playing on both Woob Software's website. That is their direct website, and you can download this tutorial for free and play tutorial levels 1 through 5. This is, of course, level 5. Or if you're interested, you can also go to Steam. They have it on there, again, for free, as a tutorial, as a demo. And then if you are interested, again, go and just buy the whole game. It never goes on sale. Don't wait for Factorio to go on sale. It never does. And the reason is because that's part of their philosophy. And heck, just in case you're the type of person that likes to pirate games, I'm not judging, I'm just saying that, you know, they have specifically made their business model to where, sure, you could pirate their game, but you're not going to be able to get into the mods that are present. I think it's a brilliant strategy, especially in, you know, the age of 2024, where, you know, you have all these people who are trying to spoof games and underground games and whatnot. I think it's really smart for the developer to head that off. And I love that the way they've done that, and Woob Software is a tremendous company, and I hope that you support them fully, and I hope that you get the full game. And again, the way that they've made sure that you will want to buy the full game is because that is the way that you will get access to the whole modding scene. And there's a tremendous amount of wonderful, fantastic mods. Overhaul mods such as space exploration, Factorio, Industrial Revolution, things like jetpacks, which I don't have access here, but I have the mod still on, even though I haven't, even though I don't actually have it here. Actually, wait, do I have it somewhere in here? No, it's not available in my list. Otherwise, I wish I could show you the jetpack. It's something I can't live without at this point. The Afraid of the Dark mod that lets it so you can see in the dark much better. There's so many mods, and that's tremendous. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. I hope you go and find out everything that Factorio has to offer. It is staggering, and it's wonderful. Support your local developers. Okay, I've beat that point into the ground. Again, we are just kind of wrapping this up. I think that at this point, it does not hurt my feelings to start picking up these extra solar panels, because we might have already met our requirements. If my math is right, we're at the very least, we're very close. And I'm just going to leave the skeleton structure of these power poles while I go and I pick up these other solar panels. And from here on out, this base will rely strictly on coal power and whatever energy is currently in these accumulators. It looks like we're not touching the accumulator power just yet, and that feels nice as well. Let's plop in the rest of the solar panels. We've made our goal, and the engineer, and the objective goes away. The engineer says, I am ready to go. Congratulations, you have reached the end of the tutorial. You are free to continue playing on this level as long as you like, or exit and build a new factory in free play mode. Free play is the main way of playing the game. You will start with only a few supplies, and you must build up your factory with the goal of launching a rocket into space. You will research and explore the full features set that Factorio offers to help grow your production and defend it from the natives who do not like you. Thanks for playing the Factorio team. Again, please support Woob Software. They are one of the good guys. In an age of AAA developers that all suck, just are terrible. I'm gonna say it. Dog shit companies that are out to make a buck and pretty much feels like they actively hate their player base. Woob Software is a shining example of video game design done right. After being betrayed by so many companies that I used to love and support, it is so nice to have a company that is practicing what they preach and just worth supporting. So if you are interested in this game at all, please take a look at Factorio. I am going to show you really quickly. I'm going to hit continue, and again, we could play as long as we want on this level. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to hit load game. I'm going to show you all my different load games here. There are many of them here, and I can't click on all of them because some of them are, you know, Factorio, some of them are space exploration, some of them are just random things. But I'm going to show you the current save that I am playing on. This is 11 hours into the free play. I just want to show you this really quickly. This is my free play base. As you can see, it is flat. There are no cliffs. I turn off cliffs because I don't like playing with cliffs because it's just annoying to me. This was my starter base. This is the exact same structure that we just created. A couple of these gear wheels, and then our green circuit production into our inserters, into our base building belts and undergrounds and splitters. Assemblers go here, and then the original structure that comes up here, and then you make your science, and your science goes into your labs. Oh, but wait, now we're finally doing some other things. We're getting blue science. What is this? Sulfur? Red circuits? Engine units? That can't possibly be a real thing. That is amazing. Look, I have a jetpack. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. What the heck is this blue, or excuse me, this green liquid? That's lubricant. Why do I have lubricant? It's because it's there to make these robot frames work. Why do I need robot frames? And so then I can go to my construction and I can just build something crazy. Like, I don't know. Let's just have robots build some lines of stuff for me. You know? And this is just a very, very quick glimpse into what could be for you. If you are excited with Factorio. I started off with nothing in this scenario, and this is what I've built. And those 10 hours flew by. I have my rail base on the whole outside. I like to make a box so that way any deviations I need to make outside of that box to maybe go into some mining or something like that, I can do so very, very quickly, or go to oil patches off the grid. I've got a nuclear setup here that is only being used very, very sparingly. As you can see, the nuclear reactors are going to start needing to be filled with these little canisters of green glowing energy. Here's my original power setup that I had. Everything that I've done in the tutorials, that's kind of what I do now. But all of this, though it may look overwhelming, is just step by step, and all the things that we've learned in the tutorial, those are all directly applicable to what it took to build this. That's it. That's all it is. And that's all it ever is, until you start to get into some other really nice, fun stuff. Let me show you one other save here. This one has 127 hours. Don't ask me why I've played a single save for 127 hours. I just know that I did it at one point. And I have a bigger box and a bigger poison cloud. And I started off with my starter base over here, and then I eventually moved into some gigantic bus designs. And as you can see, there's no resources in this bus because I'm redesigning this because I have this other one that's also doing all this production. I basically already doubled it. It's still working. And I got these gigantic solar panel fields. There's just so much going on. And do I regret spending 127 hours on this? Well, when you put it that way. Folks, this is the only game I think I've ever played where I look up and I can't remember if the sun is not out because it's nighttime, like it's 7 p.m. or 7 a.m. But this is that game. I hope that you take a look yourself. One last thing. This was the very first save that I ever did. I played with no biters on. And this is the moment that I launched a rocket. It took me, I think, 81 hours to launch my first rocket. Yep, 86 hours and 34 minutes. But when I did it, this was what I had. And I was very happy for it. I've refined my play over several hundred hours of play. but this was the first 80 hours of my gaming experience with Factorio. Maybe yours will be better, and maybe yours will be worse. But whatever you do, I highly encourage you to keep track of your very first save. If you play any significant amount of time in Factorio, you're going to look back very, very fondly on this very first save, and you're going to say to yourself, what was I doing? As you become a better engineer and a better master of your fate. Folks, my name is FixFox. Thank you so very, very much for spending the time with me. I may do a little bit more Factorio in the future, but I've met my goal with Factorio in that I wanted to complete the tutorials. If you are interested in seeing me do some free plays, let me know. Otherwise, I will leave this in your hands. Links should be in the description. Thank you. And I will see you next time. FixFox, out.